we cannot escape the past.
They say Tom Cruise has the brightest smile in Hollywood. But behind that smile lives something far sharper. He doesn't shout, he doesn't break. He dismantles your question, your intent, your arrogance, with a calm that chills more than any anger. Here are moments Tom Cruise froze the media, without breaking a sweat, the star who shuts down a room without raising his voice. The day Tom Cruise froze a nation. In 2005, America tuned in expecting a harmless morning chat. Instead, they watched the world's biggest movie star transform the Today Show into a battlefield of composure, one where the only weapon was control. Matt Lauer entered confident, even casual, thinking he held the narrative. Antidepressants, Brooke Shields, psychiatry. He believed these topics would corner Tom Cruise, push him into a defensive shuffle, maybe even crack the flawless Hollywood smile the world adored. But the moment he pressed Tom on medication and mental health, the atmosphere thickened. Tom didn't retreat. He didn't blink. He leaned in with the stillness of someone who had already dissected the conversation before it began. And then, with chilling clarity, he delivered the line that would echo across American media.
You don't know the history of psychiatry. I do.
The studio fell quiet, unnervingly quiet. Matt tried to soften his tone, tried to pull the interview back into safe waters, but Tom never loosened his grip. His voice stayed calm, almost eerily steady, as he cut through every question with surgical precision.
All it does is mask the problem, Matt.
And then the final blow: you need to be more responsible. In that moment, the power flipped. The interviewer looked unsettled. The guest looked immovable. Tom wasn't angry. He wasn't even tense. He was certain. And certainty, when delivered without a tremor, becomes a force that silences entire rooms. People called the interview uncomfortable, confrontational, even legendary. But the truth underneath was simpler and darker. Tom Cruise didn't overpower Matt Lauer with volume. He dismantled him with conviction. And that morning, America learned that the smile everyone admired wasn't just charming, it was armor. In a world loud with opinions, the quietest voice, when absolutely sure, wins the fight. The line Peter Overton never should have crossed. There are moments in journalism when a question is not curiosity, it's intrusion. And in 2005, Australian reporter Peter Overton stepped into one of those moments without realizing he was walking into a storm disguised as calm. The cameras were rolling, the energy was light, but within minutes the interview would tilt into a silence so sharp it felt like the air itself froze. Peter believed he was doing what every reporter dreams of, touching the private core beneath a public giant. He mentioned Nicole Kidman, Tom's past, Tom's wounds, Tom's history, and expected a sentimental answer, maybe even a fracture in the superstar's armor.
Was Nicole the love of your life?
He asked, leaning forward, convinced he had found the question that would make Tom human. But the shift was immediate. Tom's smile didn't disappear. It simply hardened. His eyes locked onto Peter's with a clarity that stopped the room. And then, in a voice quiet enough to unsettle anyone unprepared, he drew the boundary.
Peter.
Yeah.
You're stepping over a line now. You're stepping over a line. You know you are.
The words weren't loud. They didn't need to be. They carried the weight of a man who had built his life learning exactly where the world tried to pierce him and how to stop it. Peter, suddenly stripped of confidence, attempted a retreat disguised as justification.
I suppose they're questions
Peter.
that people want to know.
Tom didn't blink.
Peter, you want to know.
It was the kind of correction that didn't embarrass. It exposed. The atmosphere tightened. The certainty in Tom's voice erased any illusion of control the interviewer thought he had. What began as a search for vulnerability turned into a masterclass in boundaries, firm, unwavering, surgically delivered. Peter Overton learned what many before him had felt, but never spoken aloud. Tom Cruise is polite, gracious, even warm, until you push into a space that isn't yours. And when you do, he doesn't push back. He simply shuts the door with a precision that leaves you standing alone, wondering how you misread the moment so badly. As the interview faded, one question lingered in the air, unspoken yet heavy. If stepping on personal ground triggered this version of Tom, what would happen when someone tried to drag him into politics? The silence that struck harder than any answer. Some confrontations begin with shouting.
Please keep that applause going for Mr. Tom Cruise.
Others begin with pressure. But the most dangerous ones begin with a question that pretends to be innocent. During an international press conference, Tom Cruise walked into the room with the trademark calm that made audiences feel safe around him. But safety evaporates quickly when someone tries to pull a movie star into the battlefield of politics. And that night, one reporter tried exactly that, disguising a political trap as casual curiosity. She stood up, smiling politely, and asked about Trump-era tariffs, overseas productions, and whether Tom's film was affected by shifting global policies. It wasn't a question, it was a minefield. A single misstep could headline every outlet in the country. Reporters knew it, the room knew it, and Tom knew it. He listened without moving, without blinking, without offering a single hint of irritation. And when the question finally ended, the room held its breath. Tom didn't lecture, he didn't deflect. He didn't even offer a prepared studio-approved statement. He simply exhaled. A slow, measured breath that was almost soundless but somehow colder than words. Then, with a calm that felt like steel wrapped in velvet, he answered, "I think that's a fair answer. Next question, please." No debate. No explanation. No entry point for controversy. Just a wall of silence delivered with such precision that it shut down the entire direction of the press conference. The reporter sat down, stunned. The room shifted back into order, and Tom moved on as if nothing had happened. But everyone there knew the truth. Sometimes the most powerful answer is refusing to play the game at all. And yet the question lingered like static in the air. If silence alone could disarm a political ambush, what would happen when someone pushed Tom into a scenario even more absurd, even more invasive, one designed to make him question his own identity? The question that tried to turn friends into enemies. They were supposed to be talking about craft. Tom Cruise was on a press tour, sharing stories about the brutal fight scene he filmed with Russell Crowe. He talked about Crowe as an athlete, a strong stunt partner, the real table he was slammed into, the bruises they both took home. It was the kind of behind-the-scenes moment audiences love, two professionals giving everything for one scene. Then a reporter tried to twist it. Instead of asking about the choreography or the trust required, he leaned in with a smirk and asked the question he thought would spark something bigger if Tom and Russell fought for real. Who would win? It sounded playful on the surface, but underneath it was cheap fuel, a forced rivalry, a headline built on ego and conflict. Tom didn't play along. He didn't laugh, didn't throw out a cocky answer, didn't turn his friend into an opponent just to entertain a room. Instead, he paused, looked at the reporter, and asked a simple, cutting question.
Why did he ask that question?
The tone wasn't angry, it was disappointed, like a teacher watching a student choose the wrong lesson. He made it clear where he stood. Russell wasn't a prop for some imagined showdown.
It's my friend, that
Tom said.
would never happen.
With that, he shut down the fantasy completely. No fuel, no rivalry, just a quiet reminder that not every bond exists for public consumption. The reporter's moment evaporated. What was supposed to be a fun little stir, instead, exposed how far some people will go to turn human relationships into clickbait. Tom's answer didn't just protect Russell, it protected the idea that loyalty isn't something you trade for a reaction. And if he guarded a friend this fiercely over a hypothetical fight, what would happen when someone tried to cross an even harsher line, not with a question, but with a public stunt designed to humiliate him in front of the world. The humiliation that didn't shake him. Red carpets are loud, chaotic, and filled with people trying to steal a moment of attention. Tom Cruise moved through them with practiced ease, answering questions with the steady charm he was known for. But during one premiere, that charm was tested in a way no one expected. A man posing as a reporter approached him with a microphone in hand, smiling as if he were about to ask a soft, harmless question. Tom leaned forward, trusting the familiar rhythm of celebrity interviews. Then the man pulled the trigger. A stream of water shot directly into Tom's face. The laughter behind the camera gave away the intention. It wasn't journalism. It was a prank designed to humiliate him on live television. For a split second, the crowd froze, waiting for anger, a shove, a meltdown, anything that could be turned into a headline. But Tom didn't give them any of it. Instead, he stepped closer. His voice dropped to a low, controlled calm that cut deeper than outrage ever could.
Now, why would you do that? Why would you do that?
Not once, but again and again, holding the man in place with nothing more than steady eye contact. The prankster's grin collapsed under the weight of Tom's composure. When he tried to pull away, Tom didn't let him escape.
Incredibly rude. I'm here giving you an interview and answering your questions, and you do something really nasty. You're a jerk.
The crowd watched the power shift completely. The man who set the trap became the one exposed. Tom didn't raise his voice or humiliate him in return. He simply held him accountable, leaving the prankster small and scrambling for words. In the end, the stunt didn't make Tom look foolish. It revealed the cruelty of those who tried to make a spectacle out of him. And as Tom walked away, the question hung in the air: if he stayed this composed in the face of public humiliation, what would happen when someone challenged him not physically but personally, by suggesting he wasn't even allowed to live like a normal human being? The attempt to strip him of his identity. Some questions look harmless until you hear the intention behind them. During one interview, the host began talking about the iconic masks from Mission Impossible, smiling as if he were building up to a fun moment. But then he switched tone and asked Tom Cruise what he would do if he could wear the mask of an average person and walk through life without anyone knowing who he was. The question wasn't playful. It carried an implication that Tom's life wasn't real, that fame had separated him from basic human experience. Tom didn't laugh. He didn't shrug it off. Instead, he paused long enough for the room to feel the shift.
Beg your pardon?
What are you doing?
Forcing the interviewer to repeat the question exactly as he intended it. When he did, Tom answered with a quiet certainty. He said he would do the same things he already does. Watch movies, make movies, travel, meet people. Not because he wanted to hide, but because those things were genuinely part of his life. His tone didn't defend fame or deny its challenges. It simply rejected the idea that he lived in some hollow, disconnected world. Tom didn't need a mask to enjoy life or understand normal moments. He already moved through the world with awareness, curiosity, and a sense of gratitude that the interviewer clearly didn't expect. The question tried to shrink him into a caricature, a man trapped inside celebrity. But Tom's answer revealed a truth the interviewer hadn't considered: identity isn't stolen by fame unless you let it be. And Tom never had. Yet another interviewer would soon try something different. Instead of questioning his identity, they would attempt to paint him as a man who couldn't even blend into the world he claimed to understand. The late-night attempt to paint him as untouchable. Late-night shows thrive on poking their guests, and when Tom Cruise appeared with Jimmy Kimmel, the host tried steering the conversation toward the idea that Tom couldn't live a normal life. Jimmy asked whether Tom ever wished he could move freely, whether he could ride public transportation, visit museums, or simply walk down the street without being recognized. It sounded playful, But beneath it was the suggestion that Tom was too famous to be human. Tom didn't take the bait. He said he didn't avoid people, didn't hide from public life, and didn't change who he was just because attention followed him. Then he dropped the story that flipped the narrative. He described putting on a cap and headphones and riding the London Underground like anyone else trying to get across town. Most commuters ignored him, except for one teenage girl who stared at him with wide disbelief. Their eyes met. She looked around to see if anyone else noticed, and the moment became quietly unforgettable. The story wasn't told to boast about slipping through a crowd. It was a reminder that Tom lived within the world, not above it. Jimmy's attempt to paint him as disconnected fell apart under the weight of a simple train ride. By the end of the segment, the audience wasn't laughing at Tom. They were seeing him differently, grounded, observant, more present than anyone expected. But the next interviewer wouldn't question his humanity or his normalcy. They would go after something sharper, his talent, his right to the role he had taken. The insult disguised as a question. Some questions come wrapped in curiosity, but this one came wrapped in dismissal. During the press tour for Collateral, a reporter opened the conversation not by praising the film or asking about preparation, but by saying the role felt more suited for Al Pacino or Robert De Niro. It was a subtle strike, a way of telling Tom Cruise he didn't belong in the part he had already delivered on screen. Tom didn't react with irritation or sarcasm. Instead, he let the comment sit before answering with a calm that revealed more discipline than defensiveness. He talked about embracing challenges, about not fearing any character, and about the excitement of discovering what a role could become. The reporter had tried to corner him into insecurity. Tom responded with grounded confidence. The interviewer pushed again, hoping to trigger a sharper reaction. That's when Tom leaned forward and quietly shifted the power in the room. "Take responsibility for what you want to know," he told him. "This is a conversation between you and me." The reporter froze, realizing he had crossed a line without getting the reaction he came for. He apologized, and Tom accepted it without triumph. The moment wasn't about winning, it was about reclaiming respect without raising his voice. The man who attempted to diminish him ended up acknowledging his own misstep. As the interview closed, one truth hung in the air: confidence doesn't need volume. And Tom's composure revealed that the criticism meant to undermine him only sharpened his presence. The room that tried to break him. Press rooms can feel harmless at first, a few smiles, a few cameras, but Tom Cruise had been in the spotlight long enough to recognize when the mood shifts. Some sessions turned into coordinated pushes, with reporters firing questions meant not to learn, but to corner him. They asked about his beliefs, his discipline, his private life, all layered together to test how far they could stretch his composure. Tom didn't rush or retreat. He answered each question separately, refusing to let the noise turn into chaos. When someone suggested he was too intense or difficult, he redirected the moment to the work itself, grounding the room with an unexpected calm. The more they tried to provoke him, the steadier he became, as if the pressure only sharpened his focus. There were moments when the questions dipped below professionalism. Sarcasm disguised as humor, personal digs masked as curiosity. But instead of pushing back with emotion, Tom used precision, gentle corrections, quiet boundaries, subtle redirections. His control didn't silence the reporters, it exposed the intent behind their questions. Even when several journalists pressed him at once, trying to overwhelm him with overlapping challenges, Tom's presence remained centered. He didn't try to dominate the room. He simply refused to let the room dictate who he was. And in that refusal, the tension they tried to build collapsed into something smaller than they intended. By the end, it became clear that Tom's strength never came from volume or confrontation. It came from restraint, the kind that turns pressure into clarity and turns ambushes into mirrors. Every attempt to shake him only made one thing more visible. The calm behind his smile wasn't politeness. It was power. So after watching all these moments, Which part of Tom stands out to you most? The calm, the conviction, or the quiet warning behind the smile?